Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
You and I have been lucky enough to live in different places.
Yeah.
And one of the things that always has been super easy for me, even though when I moved off to, from hometown to go to college to
Sure.
marriage to Pennsylvania to Texas, you going from New Hampshire to Florida to here. Besides weather, one of the things that changes too is our friends.
Mm-hmm. Or at least you add friends.
Yeah. And would you say that it is pretty easy for you, or would you say it's pretty hard for you to make friends wherever you go?
I got to say that probably most of my friends wherever I've gone has largely come from places I've worked.
Okay.
Because that just seems to be where I spend most of my time.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Some of those friendships remain after I've left, and some of them don't quite as much. I think that given the kind of work that I do in education, it kind of necessitates getting to know people
Okay.
a little bit better as we collaborate and do a lot of things. And I think that for me, it's been fairly easy to make some friends no matter where I've been.
Gotcha.
It's not easy for every adult. I know that. But for me, it's been pretty easy. And I'm often perplexed by this. My wife and I have had these conversations because she's not had it quite as easy. It's just, it's that I kind of think of myself as being a little bit of a jerk.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm a little bit perplexed sometimes when I can make friends fairly easily because I tend to. You've talked before about sarcasm that you do being seen as kind of mean sometimes, and I feel like I do the same thing. And so sometimes I don't come off the way that I want it to, and I feel like I'm being a jerk, and yet people generally still like me, and I don't fully understand that. But that's just maybe an insecurity on my part.
Okay.
But I think it's been easy for me, and maybe I'm just fooled. I don't know. Maybe some people aren't my friends, and they're just acting like they are. I don't know.
Well, so the reason why I ask, I have found it relatively easy for me to make friends wherever I go.
Mm-hmm.
As my wife has said, there's not a person I haven't met that I didn't make a conversation with.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm the kind of person, I'll be in an elevator and I'll start talking to people. I'll be standing in line at the grocery store and I'll talk to somebody. Sherry and I can be out and people, total strangers, will come up and start conversations with me.
Yeah.
And they don't know me. I don't know them, but we'll start talking. And so, but it got me thinking. And then, of course, it's weird how I'll be thinking something, and then lo and behold, if I don't run into an article that pops up somewhere on one of my many news feeds, but it was talking about making friends as adults versus making friends as a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, when I was going through the divorce, because of the relationship I had with Eric's mother, I didn't have a lot of friends. I mean, I had acquaintances, but not a lot of friends.
Sure.
Mostly because she was very controlling, and we couldn't invite people over. We might go out with somebody, but then that's the only time, they didn't like me. Oh, they were jealous of me. And so we wouldn't go out with them again. And so when I'm going through the divorce and I'm part of this divorce group, I was having to be single again.
Yeah.
And so this article got me thinking, okay, why do we as adults maybe find it harder to make friends than when we're kids? Because, you take a kid and you move a kid anywhere, and they a lot of them within a short amount of time seem to be able to make friends relatively easy. I mean, we changed Eric's school in the middle of the school year, and by the end of the school year, he was friends with all kinds of kids not just in his kindergarten class, but in the other kindergarten classes at that school as well.
Sure.
And so that's why I was just asking, do you think it's easy for you? And you said yes, but you mentioned that it's a little harder for your wife.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, some of it might be personality.
Maybe.
But I also think sometimes, I don't know, do we think too hard as an adult?
Probably. Right. I mean, I think part of it for me is, from my perspective, is that I'm very comfortable with myself overall. So even if I come off like a jerk, I'm still fairly comfortable with myself.
Okay.
I might, make a mental note of like, I shouldn't do that again.
Okay.
But I'm not very apologetic about a lot of those things. I just feel like people will either get over it or they won't. Right. Like if somebody's really my friend, they'll either just say it to me.
Yeah.
Or they'll just move on, right? And it won't be a big deal. But I just don't feel. I hang out with people that I want to hang out with, that also want to hang out with me. And if you don't want to, then that's cool, right? Like, you don't have to be friends with everybody.
Well, no, but I think that when you live in the same community that you grew up with. Okay, no problem. You've got your friends that you've had since, you were very little. But since so much of our world is very transient, jobs move us from one part of the country to another part of the country. Sometimes it moves us internationally. And when you do that, well, you're taken out of your comfort zone. You're thrust into an unfamiliar, uncomfortable position. And now you have to start all over again, and starting over again is never easy.
Right.
And so that's why I was saying with our divorce group, the thing was, well, when you were single last, almost all of us were high school, college, where you're surrounded by a bunch of like-minded, like-aged people looking for a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
When you get to be in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s, and suddenly you're thrust into a very brand new, unfamiliar situation, starting over is not real easy. And so when I ran into this article, I was talking about, one, the value and benefits that we get social, emotionally from having friendships.
Yeah.
But how? How can you, what are some ideas? What are some ways that you can really work at making friends again when you are older and you are, like I said, you had to move. And especially, okay, if you work. Now, you and I have had the luxury of working in a school where there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
You have the kids, but you work with a large group of people, and you have to engage and interact with them whether you want to or not.
Sure.
But moving away from that, not every kind of business lends itself to that. And so when you're starting over in a new business or in a new town, new community, we got to, again, start all over. And they're saying that it's actually a lot harder for us as adults because maybe we're not totally comfortable with ourselves. And if you don't have kids to that are in school or in sports, and so you're meeting people that way, or maybe you don't have kids yet, starting over is kind of a challenge.
Well, we know that as adults, that as you move into adulthood and further into it, you get kind of set in your ways.
Yeah.
And so when you meet up with somebody who's not set in those same ways, it can be difficult. Right. But I think that a lot of the relationships that I've come up with have come from work or from organizations, right? So like maybe I'm involved in a church, and so I get to know some other couples in the church, and so we strike up relationships that way. Or maybe you're volunteering in an organization, or you frequent the same supermarket and you meet you just get to know the people that are there. Maybe you're a little older and go to the bingo hall a lot.
Yeah.
Right. But if you are going to stay in your house, you're never going to make friends.
And that's what I liked about this particular article. And like I say, having lived in many different places, And then again, that's, I mean, when I went through the divorce, not only did I have to change where I lived, I had to change where I worked. I literally everything turned inside out and upside down.
Sure.
And so what they're saying here, or one of the things they were saying was just what you said. One, you got to put yourself out there.
Yeah, you got to get outside.
You do. I mean, in fact,
what do 20-somethings do? They go to the club scenes, and they meet people. I mean, if you're not out, how are you going to meet somebody? I mean, and don't say it's online because that rarely works.
Well,
because even then, you're still going to eventually have to get out of your house.
And we'll get to that because that's something else that they address.
Sure.
But you do have to. And as the article says, and I'm going to quote them, there's no way to sugarcoat this. No. Making friends requires an effort on your part. So you got to put yourself out there. You got to take a little risk. But getting involved with, going to the gym and becoming friends with people at the gym, doing the bingo, like you say, going to church, getting involved in church.
Does anybody become friends with people at the gym?
That's where my stepdaughter met her boyfriend.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like that might be an awkward kind of a
don't know
to meet somebody. But.
Well, true, but if you're constantly there at 6 a.m.
Right.
and then they're there at 6 a.m. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And next thing you're working on you're on your treadmill, they're on their treadmill, and you just strike up a conversation.
Sure.
So I don't know.
But the point is, you got to be out.
You do, and it requires effort. You got to take a little bit of a risk so that way you can. Well, in essence, you can't meet people, as you said, stuck in your house.
Well, I mean, you've talked about before how you were part of a divorce group, and in that group, you're still friends with a great many of those people, right?
That is true.
I mean, you married one of them, but but you know others, and you're still friends with them. Maybe you're not in contact with them constantly, right? But you could be, and they would respond to you, and it would still be a friendship that exists. So I think that whatever it is, you've got to be out. You've got to be connecting and physically in front of somebody else.
And that's kind of what they're saying. Of course, part of the article in here mentions make sure you stay within your boundaries. Don't do things that are too uncomfortable. I mean, while I will continue to agree with the statement, nothing grows in the comfort zone.
Well, I mean, I don't hang out in the clubs anymore.
Well, no, neither do I. And that's kind of what they're saying. Where your comfort, what's too extreme.
Sure.
But again, putting yourself out there, taking a risk, getting involved, because that, you mentioned about online. One of the things that they talked about is, going online. Trying online groups.
Sure.
The divorce group was actually an online group. Now, we were all in person. We met weekly in person, but they had an online recruitment platform. And so that helped. And so that can help you. In fact, there were all kinds of things. Groups, you can find running groups, you can find travel groups, you can find board game groups. There's all kinds of groups wherever you are, and a lot of times they can advertise. And so that's kind of what they're saying is that you can, using online platforms, you can reach out and meet people or learn of groups or organizations to then go in person to try. Because if you're going to depend entirely on, how shall we say, just talking, typing, meeting, in group chats, that's maybe not the same thing, which I would totally agree with.
I mean, even so, you're not really a friend until you eventually meet.
Well, and that's kind of what they're saying. Now, they also say that, a lot of people might prefer this because you have severe anxiety or you are an introvert. Fair enough. And that's again, I would argue that's a fine place to start, but not always.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's okay, right? Like we pen pals have been a thing forever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And those are still valid relationships, but it's not the same kind of thing as, let's go out and, grab an appetizer together. Right. so we can talk about something. Let's go get a coffee.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and those are great things too, right?
Sure.
Like, just go get a coffee with somebody if that's what you do. Golf is got to be one of the greatest networking things ever, right? As far as activities, right? Like people go out onto the golf course and absolutely suck at it and have a great time. Right. And that's fine. Right. I mean, you're just blowing, between $40 and $600, but, it's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And lots of people are friends that way. But finding a like activity is really important. A book club.
Uh-huh.
Right. I mean, I love to read. I would definitely be part of a book club. I don't know whether there is one, but they might not want to read the books I like to read. But
well, maybe
that's probably why I haven't been in one.
Well,
but I mean, a lot of people like to read, right? And a lot of people should like to read, and a lot of people should just read. I mean, obviously, I'm advocating reading.
Really?
But reading,
I hadn't noticed.
Reading and then talking to somebody about the book. We do this all the time.
You and I do.
A great way to learn about the book. It's a great way to share what you're experiencing in your life with another person. A lot of books that I share with people, they actually go and read them.
Yeah.
Whether they're students or adults.
Yeah.
And, they may or may not like it. That's fine. Right. But we can talk about it. And so you got to have a point of relationship somewhere, some commonality that you can discuss, other than just like, hey, the weather's great. Right.
Yeah.
So nice. I mean, that's not really a friendship. You got to be able to go a little bit deeper.
Yeah. Well, one of the other online options that they put out there, and I thought, well, okay, I've kind of done this, and that is online gaming. Now, I'm a big video gamer, and I bought my PlayStation 4 so that I could play with my nephews who are all over the country, and now they're all over the world.
I have a PS2 and a Wii. Does that?
That's online gaming. I have a PS4. Getting the PS5 first became near impossible because I came out during COVID, and then the price was through the roof, and I'm going, I just cannot justify paying that kind of cash for a silly game. Anyway, but again, if you're into online gaming, they're just saying that's a way to meet people, to get out of your shell and engage in conversation with somebody other than you and the wall. Now, another suggestion that I had never thought about this, and I'm thinking, actually, we used to do this at home growing up, but it's throw a party. And I know my mom and dad were part of a group called Marriage Encounter, which help people strengthen their marriage with their spouse. And so a lot of times they would have a wide variety of parties. And they would meet other couples. We would meet other kids. And it was great. So the idea of throwing a party, Sherry's, we've been to several of her friends who are work friends that have had parties, and I've met other people, and it's kind of exciting.
Yeah. I don't think I've been to a party in 10 years, probably. Nobody's really offered one. And maybe that's because of COVID, right? After a while. But, I just haven't been. I mean, my grandson's been to birthday parties like every weekend for 10 weeks in a row. But that's pretty common with kids. Yeah. And maybe not as common with adults. I mean, we wait for the office Christmas party or the end of the year party or whatever. And sometimes those don't even come. And so, but yeah, that's a good one. I hadn't really thought about that.
Well, and that's kind of
so I can't wait for your party.
Well,
I especially can't wait for Sherry to know that you're throwing a party.
Well, it's kind of neat too because, and as here, it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a neighborhood party. It could be,
block parties are big.
Oh,
right.
I don't recall that we ever did one in our neighborhood.
I think those always sound very fun. We've never done one. But you see them on TV shows and then, right? There's sitcoms that'll have a block party, and it's like, are those things real? Do people actually do that?
I don't know.
I mean, maybe a listener out there could tell us or email us in about that, whether those things take place or not, and what their experience is. I would love to know. But you know, those are great. Now, I've gone to community organized parties, right?
Yeah.
Like in the town that I live in, they'll have a party on the square,
Yeah.
right? And so lots of people go to that. I don't really meet anybody there unless I already knew them.
Well, that was one thing I enjoyed. You mentioned no going to parties in a long time. Our divorce group, we would throw parties all the time. Super Bowl parties, New Year's parties.
Now, Super Bowl parties I've done.
Yeah. But those are fun. Now, you kind of knew, well, of course, in our divorce group, you always knew some people, but you didn't know everybody.
Right.
And so it was a neat way to meet new people.
Yeah.
And so I love parties, and you're right. And I love the way you mentioned your grandson. Little kids usually have an easier time making friends because, again, a birthday party every weekend because there's 25, 30 kids in your class. And so, boom, lots of parties. And, of course, it's not just the other kids in the class. It's all other people. And so the idea, again, you're putting yourself out there a little bit, but throw a party, get to know the people in your neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So
absolutely.
That reminds me of a Sesame Street song. Who are the people in your name? Anyway, sorry.
Mr. Hooper.
Yeah. So some of the other things, and this kind of ties in with the online stuff, but there are various apps out there that can help you make friends.
Mm-hmm.
Here they mention the dating apps.
Good God. I'm glad I don't have to do that.
I can tell you during the divorce, there are a lot of ways to meet people online.
Yeah.
And you can filter them by your interest. You can filter them by gender, age, all kinds of things. farmersonly.com, Catholics only. A friend of mine, she joined a Jewish only group.
Right.
So again, there's all kinds of things, ways to filter. You got to be careful. There's a lot of scammers out there.
Mm-hmm.
Sherry will tell you that people tried to scam her out of money from some of these dating sites. I've got a very good friend of mine that we went out on a date. First one was good. The second one, as he dropped her off, some of her friends jumped in the car. They made him drive to various bank locations to withdraw all the money from his bank account.
Yeah.
So robbed him. So these are there are dangers, but
it's tough. And I've known people who've been kind of victims of catfishing.
Yeah.
So it's terrible that this is what it comes to, right? Like people, you can't just meet somebody genuinely anymore. But I think part of that is because we're not getting out of our house.
Well, and
we're not meeting the people that live around us.
Now, there are some. Now, we belong, Sherry signed us up for the Nextdoor app. Mm-hmm. Which people comment about all kinds of things that's going on in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to learn. Well, we've used it several times.
Have that.
Okay. And so that's really neat. And then the Meetup app.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how our divorce group actually used to advertise itself as an online. But there were all kinds of groups, like I say, travel groups, music groups, book club groups are all on Meetup. So it's an app, but it's also a way to get out and find people that kind of do the same thing you do. I mean, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons, and there are I've seen on Facebook where you can, hey, you want to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons, or you want to restart playing, join us. And so
and you can be friends with people who aren't necessarily similar in everything, right? Like
True.
I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, and I'm not a big video game.
But
we have a lot of other commonalities that we like.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
I'm not saying I wouldn't play those things, but I probably wouldn't. But it's just we have the book commonality. And we have the shared career that we at least you had, right? Like you left it, but it's still similar, right?
Yeah.
So it just you don't have to be exactly the same, right?
Right.
Because that could be boring.
Absolutely. One other thing, and I've done this before, and that is volunteer or join a club.
Yes.
And I've been toying with some of that, now that I'll actually have maybe a little more free time as I am no longer in the classroom and dealing with all of the fun and joy that comes from that. And so I've been trying to think, okay, well, what kind of group or organization? I as a Catholic, I was a member of the Knights of Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I need to restart going back into that, or,
Sure.
different volunteering groups. There are just so many different ways to meet people. Volunteering, at an animal
in
shelter.
our area, there's tons of that. Like I volunteered before to help a local organization that gives toiletries to families in need.
Yeah.
Because you can't, the SNAP benefits and welfare doesn't pay for those things.
No.
And so people need to be clean,
Mhm.
right? So there's that. There's all sorts of, volunteering at your local library.
Or your church.
Or for parents, volunteer at your kid's school.
Yes.
Get involved, right? Don't just complain about it.
Uh-huh.
Get in there and see what's actually happening.
And that's
a huge win.
it's a great way to meet people. And again, volunteering is, I guess that's something my parents always did. And so I've learned to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so again, there's many different ways, but the more you put yourself out there, trying different things, doing different things, you don't have to live in isolation.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be by yourself.
And isn't it ironic that the online community and the social media that connects you to thousands of people? I haven't looked at my friend list on that common app, right?
Yeah.
That everybody has, but it's got to be over 1,000. And am I really friends with them? No, like maybe a handful, right? That I'm actually friends with and stay in touch with. And so I don't even know why I leave them on there, right? But it's just like you can be friends with thousands of people.
Yeah.
And you are more isolated than ever.
True.
Right. Social media actually isolates rather than connect in authentic ways.
True, but you can, as this article pointed out, there are ways that you can actually use them to create true friendships.
You can. I use it to find out about local events, right?
Yeah.
Nextdoor does that, but, I also find out about the local, touch a truck or what the fire department's doing or the local square events that are going on, which are frequent, right?
Yeah.
And so, if you search up those things, those are the things that are going to keep popping up in your feed, right? Mostly I can't stand social media, but that's for all the negative reasons, right?
Sure.
If I change my feed to the positive things, my branding will change.
Well, and that's kind of where this blog or article kind of ends with.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up. Stick with it. Try this, try that, and you will find friends. And the more I don't know. A lot of our anxiety, a lot of our depression, a lot of our dissatisfaction with life, a lot of times comes from our own self-induced isolation as an adult. And we don't have to be that way. Humans are meant to be social creatures.
Sure.
And life is so much more enjoyable, full, lots more happiness when we have relationships with other people.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be by yourself. Even if you're in a new place, a new job, a new community, there's ways to meet people.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
Anyway, like I say, having been a new person on more than one occasion, I found that this was kind of a neat article.
Yeah.
So,
and you get to do it again, right? You're doing it now as a new person in a new career, in a new job, in a new place.
Yeah.
Of course, your new job affords you meeting lots of people, but not necessarily, hanging out with them
socially,
given that you are, counseling.
Yes.
But, I'm sure that some of those could turn into great friendships later in life, but it's just a matter of being out there, right?
Taking a risk.
And making those connections. I always often think of historical figures on this, and the one that I always end up with is Jesus. Not that I want to go all religious, right? But I mean, here's a guy that Christianity says that Jesus is God, right? And then he's got basically 3 friends, right? I mean, he's got 12 people that are hanging around him, but only 3 of those are like really the closest friends. And there's a whole group of people following outside of that. So like, it's not necessarily about the number of people that you are friends with. It's about the quality, and how much you can trust them and, the things that you do with them. So, just need a few, right? And it'll grow from there.
There you go. Couldn't have said it better. So,
all right.
Well, that's all I got. So thanks for indulging me again today.
Awesome.
So, well, I guess that'll close down for today. So until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Scott.
See ya.
Bye-bye.